Welcome back to Brave Ideas. I'm your host, Caleb Parker. We're here at Juicy 50th edition in New York City all season long. If you've listened to this podcast before, you'll know that I'm fascinated by the future of office. Not just what office buildings look like, but how work itself is changing, the future of work. Because reality is that many offices were designed for a world built around predictability. Modern companies increasingly operate around flexibility, autonomy, and constant change. So what happens when these two realities collide? My guest today is a returning Brave Ideas guest, my friend Phil Kirschner. Phil is one of the most thoughtful voices in workspace strategy, employee experience, and the future of work. He publishes the Workline newsletter, advises some of the world's largest organizations, and spends a lot of time thinking about how work actually happens. In this conversation, we discuss why traditional offices remain misaligned with modern work, team autonomy, and the future of workplace decision-making, the concept of full-stack flex, and why movement and shared infrastructure matter, and of course, how landlords and operators may need to rethink their buildings entirely. This conversation goes well beyond co-working. It's really about where work is headed next. And Phil is one of the most brilliant brains that I know in our industry. So without further ado, let's jump in. Welcome back to the Brave Ideas podcast, Phil.
Thank you, Caleb. I'm excited to be here again.
Again, this time, first time at Juicy
First
America.
time at Juicy ever.
For you.
Which is crazy.
First time for me in Juicy US, but I've done the UK ones. What do you think?
I mean, I've been here like a minute, so far the coffee's great.
Well, give a quick shout out to the coffee brand.
Yeah, to the
right?
ranch roaster. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Look, we've got a lot to cover. You were on the podcast before in a different guise, a different hat, and now you're not wearing the hat, but you're wearing the t-shirt.
It's true.
So before we get started here, what's your view on enterprise flex, that term? What does that mean to you?
I think, trying to look forward, that we are at a moment where corporate occupiers and enterprises that think they know what flex and any kind of like variable physical workspace can mean for their portfolio is very different than the way that they should be thinking about flexibility and mobility and iteration capability within the built environment. So where they need a new definition, which I'm hopeful is accretive to the supply side in letting them kind of realize that vision, but it's going to take a lot of work.
So you're writing a lot about this, and I'm reading it, picking up what you're putting down. In your recent article, it was a couple weeks ago now,
Yep.
but the octopus overlooked the office.
Yes.
You argued that workplace infrastructure shapes the behavior.
Yep.
Makes sense. Okay. What do you think people still misunderstand, though, about the relationship between the office as what it was and what it is today, and how people actually work?
So just to clarify, I wrote that article off the back of reading a really wonderful book called The Octopus Organization by two executives from Amazon Web Services, off the back of their like decades of working with clients on digital transformation. And they described traditional organizations as a tin man, so rigid, square, creaky, slow moving, needing a lot of oil in the system to just like maintain.
They have
every
heart.
day. They have a heart, yeah, but they don't move very quickly. And compared it to the organizations that we need, which are more octopus-like, which are, they appear vulnerable, but they're actually very, not only intelligent, but can protect themselves because of how squishy and nimble they are. And octopuses, I never realized, something like 2/3 of their intelligence is in the arms, not the brain. So literally one arm can be doing something that the other arm doesn't know what's happening. So I love that idea about putting power to the edge. And I do think that that's the way many businesses will operate, with general managers of different businesses or teams having much more autonomy to move quicker. But two things really struck me in reading the book. One, the built environment in the most generic sense, not even office, is absent in the book. Like there is no recognition that work takes place in places at all. And I understand there's some political sensitivity there for Amazon, and these folks come from not just normal Amazon, but AWS specifically. They're digital leaders. I think it showed that us in like real estate and office land are seen as the anti-octopus. We're the most tin man as it gets, right? We are a shell, where octopuses are nimble because they don't have one. So I think it shows this gap, right? Like if every modern leader or any modern organizational designer isn't even raising workplace as a concept, it shows that they're like moving past it. It's not serving how variable and iterative and unpredictable work is today, especially at the team level.
It sounds to me like if I sum that up in one word, it's decentralization.
Yes, decentralization and unpredictability and the need to iterate.
Are you expecting then that most large companies, if they become decentralized, is that going to have a significant impact on as leases come up in the future on how they think about renewing? And we had conversations yesterday about retention and landlords understanding the data to get ahead of what the client needs, what the tenant needs. If the if the company is becoming decentralized and each individual user is empowered to make decisions, what does that do for landlord services?
It's not that the company has to become decentralized. It's that power and autonomy will go to the team. And if you go to an HR oriented conference, let's say, you'll hear a lot about skills based resourcing, skills based projects, where even if I'm a full time employee of, XYZ Inc., instead of having one boss and doing one job for one person all the time, technology will make it more common that I might be gigging around internally, right? So it's not a decentralized company. I still work for them, but who I'm serving on a day-to-day basis may change, which again will change my preference for where I want to be. I probably say more than anything else that we in a post-COVID world need to have clearer, more authentic, and narrower bands of purpose for an office. If I'm a large occupier and I want to have a headquarters with 100,000 square feet, it can't just be because I have X hundreds of employees who happen to live in this city. It has to be to serve the people in the company in a very specific way. So I think those spaces will get smaller, and I think people will move through them faster. And I think they will demand to have access to a wider network of places outside of that core. And all of it is going to require a level of data to let the teams know, are the choices that you're making on a day-to-day basis helpful for you and for the company?
So we're obviously at a co-working conference, and flex and co-working is eating up a lot of traditional real estate. Maybe some landlords aren't embracing it, but they will. But this has a lot to do with what you're just talking about, because we put the customer at the center of the universe. We have to understand what the customer needs to serve them. But read that headline right there.
So I've just been handed a cell phone. This is a fun way of podcast. With a Prop Motor article with a headline says, most offices are still designed for heads down work. That's why people are showing. That's not why people are showing up anymore.
And so this came out today.
I see.
Which I think, personally, I think is about 6 months old, probably. maybe 12.
Maybe 10 years.
Possibly. I don't know. Prop moto is considered mainstream, but if the media is starting to pick up on this a little bit late, but is it right to say that it's actually really late when it comes to implementing changes within workplace at the corporate real estate or the landlord side?
I hate articles like this because they feel very much like articles I've seen 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, which are all tracking around the fact that if you build a big box of space that is trying to do all things for all people all the time, it will fail at most of them, most of the time, for most of the people. If the wind is blowing in a certain way in its focus or its meetings, making something that is generically supporting a large group is nearly impossible to succeed. Saying nothing of, did you get your head count right? AI is radically reshaping the nature of the work that we are doing, who we're doing it with, what's truly human. And again, brings me back to a conviction that if you build a space that is excellent for focused heads down work, whether that's software development or creativity and media, awesome. Tell me where those places are. Give me access to them. But that doesn't mean I want to be in the same place all the time. And whether it's within one occupier's tenancy that you also have other zones that are for other things, or within a building, supported by a flex provider or modular suites or, landlord amenities. It's the movement that we have to encourage by the people, because decades of trying to constantly redesign and renovate the space around the human who doesn't want to move has failed. And unfortunately, we are culturally still not used to being moved around in the work environment. People who come from flex, I think, do it naturally, but most corporate tenants don't think about the power and like octopus like capability of being able to say, right, this space, this neighborhood, this building, this zone is no longer fit for our current purpose. We'll just go to a better one, and it's not a big deal.
I like your titles when you write these articles, because it's always like clickbaity. Yeah, I just want to read the article because of the title.
Thank you.
And one of them, and you make them really punny, like you combine the word pun and fun. Anyway, but one of them was titled "The Doctor Will Share You Now."
Yep.
Which is provocative, I suppose. But traditional offices, back to what you're describing here, are largely designed around predictability, this hierarchy structure, and non-dynamic ways of working. But obviously that's changed now. But what changes, though, when space becomes designed around shared infrastructure?
I think anyone in co-working and flex knows this, again, sort of intuitively. We humans like community-oriented spaces where somebody knows your name and there's a hospitality element, and you are making a kind of retail-oriented decision for why to come. It's very different. And this was certainly the experience when I was at WeWork, even having to educate the community managers at the time and say, why is that group grumpy? Like, everyone else around here loves this. And say, well, what you don't know is that group was relocated from somewhere else. Maybe it was uptown to downtown. Their commute has changed, or I think they were downsized, but somebody did it to them, as opposed to them making a choice as a group. Like when a small company moves into a flex provider, right? Like the CEO was probably on the tour. They shook hands with the community manager. They decided they liked the coffee. They all like opted in. And that article was about a medical university in Colorado that had like a 200 or 300 office shortage for physicians and for professors who were entitled to private offices. But instead of spending tens of millions of dollars to build a new building to fit all those people, they created kind of a co-working like community environment that was totally opt-in. They said, look, we've got a concierge or front desk, we've got nicer technology, newer space, better coffee, all these things. The ticket to entry is you have to give up your private office somewhere else, but we will not make you do it at all. But they found very quickly that they were oversubscribed. Everybody who came by said this is a better experience. They chose to go, which makes the community more positive. And that's the real break, is we're not giving corporate teams the ability to make their own decision. Maybe the last thing I'll say on that, when I was at WeWork, there were more than one case where cool kid teams from not cool kid companies, big banks, professional services, insurance, were trying to leave the headquarters, like actively coming to WeWork, like, we're ready. Us 50 out of 5,000 people, we want to move because this place we're stuck in is no good. We can't hire the talent that we want. But then, of course, the mothership wouldn't let them. The demand is there if you give the team the power.
I was interviewing Michelle Schneider, who was at the time the VP of Workplace for Salesforce.
So yeah,
several seasons ago. And towards the end, I said to her, well, Salesforce supports SMEs. I mean, obviously enterprise as well, but Salesforce supports a lot of SMEs because they had these Ohana floors at Salesforce, where it's like great for the community. Employees can bring people in to them and this and that.
Yeah,
it was like a shared
almost right
common area. Yeah. And I said, what if you turn this Ohana concept into a co-working space and, monetized getting closer to your customer? And she's like, good idea. Never happened. What do you think about that?
I mean, there's been other signals. Right? Amazon did, I won't remember what they called it, but back to AWS. They, for a while, had a program where they were setting up almost like Capital One Cafe kind of spaces where like, yeah, if you're an AWS customer, you can come here and work. I think you have to be a corporate customer. You can come here and work, but also we have Genius Bar kind of experts who are here all the time to get into it with you. If you're really trying to solve a problem, like come hang out. There's something so welcoming about being hosted. We like that. Come hang out with me. Be surrounded by this brand. It's no pressure, very like OG third place definition. So other brands have done it, and brands were coming to WeWork back in the day. I'm sure they're still doing it now, and setting up like branded spaces and be like, yeah, come hang out. I think it's really powerful and definitely an untapped angle for customer relationships and community building to create more, porous walls. I definitely did not come up with the term permeable co-working. Somebody here might remember where the hell that came from, but I've suggested it to, I don't even know how many headquarters clients, be like, make some space where people can linger. And usually someone from corporate security is like, hard pass. We are not doing that. But they don't see the value, and I'm hoping we can get there. But it takes a really innovative and upfront strategy and support and the conviction to say we're going to use physical space in this world of deeply technical shenanigans, right? To do something human. Come hang out with this business.
Well, the security issue is a real challenge for people.
But there's a law firm in London, it'll come to me which one, that has that like almost Amex Centurion Lounge vibe in their lobby.
It's a bank. It's NatWest.
No, there's a law firm that does it too, for sure. It'll come.
Really?
But right, like it can be done if you have the conviction to have clients, even for clients, you don't have to come upstairs and through security. We can meet you downstairs in something that's more vibey. It's great. I wish more people did it.
If more people did that, or if enterprise were to move in the direction you're talking about in your articles, it's more than changing the layouts. It's an actual, culture change, a behavior change. But when we start designing for these shared environments, how do you see that influencing the behavior of the internal in-house community of a corporate, for instance?
If those kind of shared spaces exist.
If they exist and they have access to it in a democratized way.
I mean, I think it requires, I thought you were going to ask about the landlord actually, because the biggest impact.
Well, that's coming next.
Yeah,
don't
that's
worry.
next, right? Yeah. So I think you need two people are going to have to really change their mindset to do this. One is the owner, operator, landlord, right? Like building a thing that is designed to have that kind of flow, either publicly or privately or some permeability in the middle. On the kind of tenant side, having a conviction to look for the outcomes from choices that people are making in the built environment. This is probably the conviction I write about the most, that nobody's looking at all these signals of, did I come in today or not? Is my team using Slack or not? How are we using Slack or not? What's our, are we adopting AI in particular ways? Like all these behavioral choices where in theory you should be able to say, look, the team that plays the game, that moves around, that goes to the lunch and learn, that tries to spend some time with their client downstairs is actually selling more, staying more, more engaged. I saw this years ago as a practitioner, even in totally private activity-based environments, right? No reservations at the time, sit where you want. We were able to show that the teams that were trying to use shared space like traditional space, going to the same seat every time, putting in little below the surface policies like, oh, that's Caleb's desk, even though it's not really.
People want their predictability.
Right? Yeah, but they were the lowest performing from like a cultural perspective. They had lower scores on engagement. They had lower scores for effectiveness in the environment. The teams that were moving around said, amongst other things, that by meeting and interacting with new people, even for the same company, that they found the environment to be more helpful for their kind of team productivity, decision velocity, engagement, retention. So I have a conviction there, but you need a team that's willing to watch it from the side and push the behavior, even as a test, to tell a manager, go there for a week. I'm not asking you to change your whole life, and come back and tell me what you thought. Like, did you meet more people? Were your people more excited to come in? Were you trying all the technologies and just try to break this static association with space with an idea of testing and learning and finding a better outcome.
I know you're not a psychologist, but is that a psychological thing that like the synapses are firing off because you're interacting with new people and getting stimulated in some way that makes you have energy?
I hope so. Plus, there's loads of research. Forget the synapse firing, but the bonding capital versus bridging capital dynamic. If you've ever read Bowling Alone, it's made famous by that book. I wrote about this recently off the back of reading the economic impact report from Tulsa Remote, because the program where they had paid people to move to Tulsa who were remote workers, that got them there. But what has really kept them in the city and juice the economic impact of having all these new people move to town is the programming that they put in place to get people who are not like each other to meet. And there's loads of studies about people across like socioeconomic lines, or children in particular of people in lower socioeconomic circumstance who are put into programs that put them around kids of higher socioeconomic circumstance, end up having better outcomes. I will not do the research justice, but there are innovation benefits objectively to meeting people who are not like you, bumping and nudging with ideas that are not like yours, in particular in a corporate context. So I think a lot of companies were looking at WeWork and other flex providers at the time to support their, accelerator, innovator, incubator, innovation hub, the blending of ideas. And it's great. But as soon as the one person who felt really passionate about that leaves, I think it's the kind of idea where the body rejects the organ. As soon as you need one passionate leader to do that stuff, they go, the company has not been actually changed enough to sustain it.
You've got mercenaries and missionaries out there, right? But what you're describing is summing up the co-working world and the impact that we can have as we grow bigger and bigger in office real estate. More people become more excited to be in a place that they feel like they belong. Yeah, I think the world can become a better place that way.
Hey, everybody. I'm breaking into the podcast. My name is Liz Elam. I'm the founder of Juicy. And I wanted to break in and let you know that there's other ways to be connected to Juicy. So you can join Juicy membership if you go to juicy.co, which is gcuc.co. On membership, you can find a really great deal right now. We're running a summer series. And in July, we're in the middle of it. And our second speaker is going to be on at the end of July. So definitely look at joining membership, which is also a great way to get discounts to Juicy events in live, in person, in real life, which is where we all want to be right now, is in real life. That is the future. In September, we're going to be in beautiful Cape Town, Africa, doing Juicy Africa for the first time. Antoinette is working really hard on that event. Head over to africa.juicy.co for more information and to get your tickets. Then in October, we're back in London, which is always such a great event. London is such an amazing city. It's so vibrant. The scene is incredible. You should definitely consider attending. You can get information there on uk.juicy.co. Emily is working her tail off, and it's going to be epic as always. And if that wasn't enough, we recently announced that Juicy USA 2027 is in one of my favorite cities in America, the vibrant, the amazing Miami. Early birds are up. They're never going to be this cheap again. So also look at juicy.co for a link to Miami early bird tickets. That's the only place you'll find those tickets. Anyway, we're over here busy thinking of new and exciting ways to educate you guys and inspire you guys. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We had such a great time at Juicy's 50th with Caleb and Brave, and now I'm going to turn you back to it.
When enterprise takes a certain amount of footprint within a community, how does that shift the community vibe?
Kills it.
How do you get ahead of that?
Right. So we did see, right, if you build a 5-story WeWork or any flex provider, and then Amazon or Google or somebody shows up and takes 3 of them, you are no longer running a co-working space. You are running an office for an occupier that doesn't want to come out of their own space. They don't want to come to the events. They demand their own thing. It kills the purpose of the place. I was part of a coalition of people then who believed that we should not allow a single tenant to take more than a certain amount of space in a certain building, but sales targets were what they were. We saw that worked at the time. I think it's okay to have a lot of people from the same company in the same place. And I do believe that the building of the future effectively needs to be full stack flex. But that doesn't necessarily mean full stack co-working in the sense that we think about it. It's breaking down that occupier into its smaller components, right? If it's like one big Google comes along, 3 floors, boom, and they never come out of their space, it's terrible for the fluidity and the community vibe. If you say, look, there's 20 teams from Google here, but they have higher degree of autonomy. Maybe some of them are moving between kind of smaller suites week over week as they grow and contract. They are more likely to come to events or, go to shared spaces because the team has the autonomy. There's no more like one overlord saying, thou shalt stay in this box. And that's a dynamic we haven't gotten to yet that is not proven, but I'm convinced is what will allow the occupier to roll with the unpredictability of headcount, to deal with different teams who want to work differently, but it's going to require the landlord to want to have a data-driven infrastructure for dealing with constant little changes within that constellation of a building, right? Like just because someone moved into the 5th floor today doesn't mean that they should stay there long.
I like the term full stack flex. And when we talk about mercenary versus missionary, I think in the co-working world, we have a lot of missionaries, people who really care about their community. And we need people like that. We also have to make money. And so when you talk about full stack flex, I mean, yesterday I was talking with Flip from Lucid, and he was saying that he's trying to take the best of both worlds from the serviced office world and the co-working world and put them together. And, you've got the vibe and you've got the cash flow. If I go maybe one level up from full stack flex and just call it full stack real estate, office real estate, maybe it's mixed use, maybe it's multi-tenanted.
Yeah, real estate as a service, real estate as a product, workplace as a service, whatever you want to call it.
And so traditional real estate, you might have a multi-tenanted building that are on 10, 20-year leases. You've got different people that sit inside their layer, their white box, and they don't come out. There's some pizza days or something. But if we start bringing the co-working programming into it, you have the different layers of flex as you're describing. That then moves on the mercenary side of the money. If we think about the value of a building, if lease links are coming down from your traditional office space, whereas it used to be 20-year leases, long-term, that's the value of the building. Those are coming down now. Maybe the value of the building comes down. But they're big companies, going back to the enterprise. Big enterprise footprint comes in, kills the vibe. They move out, kills the cash flow. Have co-working, lots of customers, have a little bit of churn, doesn't really kill the cash flow because you just replace them. Is enterprise coming into co-working and flex going to help on the mercenary side, help the value of buildings and help the value of the P&L because you've got a larger footprint, a large credit covenant customer coming in? Or is it better to have a lot of smaller teams because you've got that diversity and you can fill it when the churn happens?
For sure, the question you just asked is like from traditional real estate, we're like tearing down to some new state, right? We go from 20-year lease, high credit, limited number of tenants in the building. They're lumpy, but it helps value. It's less predictable or like more predictable, takes less active management. And the people who put up the money are just putting up the money and not running a product. Pin that for a second. The world of work is changing radically, right? This like team-based dynamic, organizations being broken down to their components, agentic workforces, every company born after the year 2000 being radically and dominantly flex, like remote virtual first, becoming easier to start a business on your own, right? So younger employees like who aren't vibing with the idea of getting laid off in droves, starting things on their own or reverting to blue collar work or gigging around between multiple companies, like those tectonic shifts are happening. It's what's talked about at every conference that is not a real estate conference, where real estate is not present or mentioned or like an afterthought. So maybe it's a little bit of an optimism. Like this variability is happening. We're looking for purposeful, product-based, responsive options for where smaller, more variable, unpredictable teams need to gather for very targeted reasons. It is not something we ever could have comprehended on our own because we just can't do it cognitively. There's too much indecision or too many decisions we have to make. I go to this office every Monday at 11 o'clock. I go to conference room A. I have my weekly one-on-one with Caleb. We like that. But AI will be able to make hybrid and distributed and kind of city-based campus mobility suck less than it does right now. We're not that far, I don't think, from, oh, Caleb's here. I didn't know he was in from London. I'd love to meet him for lunch, but I've got that call from 10 to 11:30 right before lunch. And like some autonomous vehicle will show up, be like, I'll be your moving Zoom room for 90 minutes to get you to lunch while you're in it. Like, the technology is there. So if all that is true, it seems to be a little bit of fool's errand, maybe it's trillions of dollars fool's errand to try to work out the math from the top down. Like, we're going to have to turn what we think of as corporate office into something that can absorb that variability, require corporate real estate teams who are equally used to, like, I take something for 20 years, I do this big project, I get to cut the ribbon and it's so sexy and I make all my photos and my architect loves me, into being more of a chief places officer that is constantly dealing with puts and takes and conviction of your team should be working in this place in this way today. And yeah, that's not my place. It's someone else's, but it's better for you. We have to get there because all of history has so far shown that the way we're trying to deal with office, when companies are not in the business of real estate, trying to design and build and operate their own, like, isn't working. They don't go to Workday and say, I want to make my own HRIS, but they will go to, the largest landlords in the world, be like, no, I know what should be in the building, not you, which I think is preposterous. So I know it's not a direct answer to the question, but we have to do it. And it's going to require a different level of trust across those lines, like landlord to tenant, corporate real estate team to the individual employees, brands within the same building, or will demand it with a completely different level of outcome orientation for the choices that we're making in the built environment.
That is very well said, and it doesn't answer the question, but it's okay. Because I think what it does is it leaves the opportunity to pose the question to everybody listening to think about. As flex eats office real estate, as leases come down, and you have more diversification of the customer mix, that means that diversification allows, in trading history, more predictability. So the valuation model has to change in office real estate.
Right.
And the question is if we then see enterprise coming in and taking up a big footprint, does that shift?
Does it
shift the value that Flex is bringing in to that diversification mix? And does it have a positive or negative impact on the valuation from that perspective?
I think positive. Yeah. Look, if the building is a product, you'd still have a big customer, but you're not dominating the building in the same way. It's still my product. And hopefully the building has enough of conviction to say, what kind of company are you? Like, how mobile are you trying to be? What are your outcomes? Oh, you're a law firm. You're just trying to come and settle here in 100,000 square feet and
sign me up. That's what they would say.
Well, yeah, today, but that can't stand, right? Like, if for a full stack flex building to work, you have to be able to say, look, we're not for everyone. This is what we stand for. This is how this building works. This is the data we want from you. This is the data we give back to you. These are the choices. The building makes some choices for you. We don't want you to be stagnant in a place that's like too big or too small. We'd rather come to you with an idea, say that the thing you moved into to start with doesn't fit you anymore. We have a better deal for you, which also lets us bring someone else in that fits better where you were. Just like a phone company saying, like, hey, the way you're using your cell phone minutes, like, we can offer you a different deal. You should want to subscribe to that level of service because we have no idea. Headcount grows, shrinks, projects grow, shrink, change. AI changes the business you're in to begin with. I don't want 20 years. I want a responsive partner. So the partner needs house rules to say, this is who I want. And so that if the product can move people around and create that variability and driving outcomes, it will increase the valuation and still welcome large chunks of people from the same organization, but it's not the same block. Like, we want all of your teams. I do not want the enterprise.
Phil, I think there's a lot of education that needs to be shared, because you talked about a lot of times at these conferences, these conversations are happening, but real estate's not present. They need to be there. Hopefully everybody's subscribing to your newsletter and reading it that way. If you were advising a landlord today on thinking about how to get ahead of the future, bring flex in, whether they have a full stack flex, or full stack real estate building, what would you say to them today, getting started, that would help them think about how to create a resilient ecosystem, and what should they be looking at to make sure that it's working when they implement it?
Like, I have a conviction about where I think we're going for the future to work holistically. I do not think that landlord side or occupier side real estate professionals do. Or if you ask the real estate industry writ large, like, what is the future? I'll still hear a lot of like, well, hybrid's the future. I've written in the past about, different models of futures thinking, but one of which defines saying, oh, like desk booking will become more common, or hybrid is the future. Say, like, that version of the future is very, very restrained and pulled back by the pre-COVID world we came from. It's not actually thinking about the direction of travel for the nature of work, and therefore what might be true for the built environment, right? So neither one of those parties has that on their own, in my experience. We say, what do you think the future is? They don't have it. But if they did, or to say co-develop it together, this is not about a lease. This is, do you align on plausible futures for where work is going? If you do, then have an open dialogue about, hypothetically, like, hey, me, landlord, you vulnerably say, we don't operate today in a way that fits that octopus-like dynamic future. We don't do it. And the corporate real estate team also saying, like, we don't have the juice internally to push people around. We are still treated like an order taker. We lost steam on doing an assigned seating. We're pushed constantly to take out budget from things that are meant to be experiential, right? We're both in this together. The answer comes from your willingness on the supply side to ideate, even totally hypothetically. If money were no object and you could build me something new, what would you do? And same thing on the occupier side, possibly even introducing a group that's willing to have the conversation. Not your most stagnant users, but it's the same way that like a Dropbox or Atlassian, the more like remote and virtual first companies, if you read any of their research, it's all come from just like playbooks and trying things. I'll go to one group, be like, hey, we're exploring a new way of having meetings. Like, everybody hates meetings. Meetings are terrible. You seem pretty cool. Would you let us tell you how to have your meetings for just like a week or two? That's it. Then we're going to ask you some questions, right? It's just test, learn, user-centric feedback. They'll find a cool group that's into it, that's not going to try to get the research team fired if something goes wrong, right? Like, just future forward. You need the same thing. I'd love to bring a group like that that's pretty nimble. Like, they like to try new tools. They have offsites. They gather. Bring them in. Like, hypothetically, if, starting on May 1st, we were to put you in a totally future forward, movable building where every day your phone dinged and said, go to the blue zone, go to the red zone. I've pre-ordered your coffee. Just like, think that out with me so that we can align on what it would even take for both of us to do it. I was at a hospitality conference yesterday. It was the same conversation. The sort of food and catering vendors and the occupier, there's this very hard line. We're like, you serve me, I put out RFPs to you. We don't ever have a vulnerable conversation about the way that both of our traditional models don't serve us anymore. And someone's got to move first.
Well, you're describing what's on your shirt.
Yeah.
Vibe officing.
Vibe officing, man. It's like, it's a feeling. Just kind of go with it.
It's like, just bring the two parties together, and everybody has the same, benefits to the outcomes to come out of that.
Yeah.
We're all going to win, right?
Someone's on panel yesterday said to a room full of the, major food services companies, she was like, it's okay to be vulnerable in front of me. Like, just person to person. You can tell me you don't know the answer to the question. You can tell me that you would love to figure out a problem that I have, but that the current contract doesn't even allow you to explore, right? Say it, be a human, because with AI doing so much, like that's the only way we're going to find interesting new things to do, is to talk to each other about the ways that our models have to change.
So you and I've had conversations in the past about sort of what I wanted to do, which we're not doing, but I want to get your take on it now. Like the idea of a real estate company going with a corporate together to go acquire a building and build out, just got all the shared office environments.
Yep.
The enterprise has their space, but can get programmed in. Many reasons that doesn't work. What's your take on that today? Will I ever make it work?
I sure hope so. I mean, there are very few non-real estate oriented occupiers who do, just meaning like are not in the business of real estate, are not, Salesforce isn't either, but has a strategy to like build towers, right? So I put them in a different category. Just major real estate investors who happen not to be in real estate, put them aside. For everyone else, there are very few that have just shown to take bold and interesting real estate decisions.
Brave
real estate decisions.
Just kidding.
Yes, right. Once bold, now brave. It's not zero, but it's not many. And I try to tell those stories when I hear them. The hospital doing shared workspace for doctors, or a healthcare company donating a building I wrote about recently, or being willing to sell the tower, get rid of the tower that's had your name on it for 100 years. Like, why not? Say, oh, we could never, but you can. I'm curious to know from your perspective, even having tried it, I imagine that 99.9% of companies wouldn't even get into a room to whiteboard that idea. They're like, it's so foreign to them. I could never imagine, people wouldn't approve it, that they won't even talk it out. Right?
Yeah, it's a small percentage. I think there are some people within companies that are willing to have that conversation, but somebody ends up shutting it down. A big blocker is back to the security aspect, which can be overcome. Then it's about controlling the experience for the employees and the clients of that company, having a different arrival experience for somebody else, and there's those kind of conversations to be had. But I think it goes back to what you were saying about the vibe officing, getting the real estate party and the client together in a whiteboarding session and vibe officing.
I'm a big believer in needing to spend more time in defining change. Most anything that could be construed as a change management program usually jumps right into like communication and doesn't spend enough time defining the thing you're trying to change or identifying the resistance to that change before you even embark on the journey. Like, I started my career in information security. I can appreciate a good security-oriented professional who's like, hard no, we are not going to do that. I don't see enough people pushing back, be like, time out, pin the real estate thing for a second. Do you think our employees are like either not safe in this world, or what is the risk that you're actually using to invoke like that you can't do that? Because like our employees don't literally live in this box all the time. They go to and from home. We may be high travel. We may be all these things. Like, what else are you doing that defines the kind of playing field for security such that you're honing in on this? And a lot of it could even just be fear, right? Like it justifies their job. Oh yeah, I manage the turnstiles. I do all the security stuff. That's like what I do. So if you say, wait, we're going to relax that, or we're going to shift it to a partner, that's threatening to me, but they won't say that or are not asked. So it just comes out as like, no, we, the company, could not do it. But actually, it's like, you don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think there's it's some of it's mindset, some of it's fear. But I'm hopeful. And I think the future you described is coming.
It is coming. We have to embrace it, because otherwise real estate is going to be, and I mean this in the most general sense, like we'll be left out of the future forward conversation when we need to be at the table, because there's so much power we can bring to it.
Well, let's have some offline conversations about getting this vibe office going. And hopefully we'll inspire some others to consider doing that themselves. This has been a great conversation. We could spend 3 hours doing a podcast. We're going to go into Q&A in a moment. And unfortunately, the people listening aren't going to get to participate on that because they weren't here.
Remember, they weren't here, but they can subscribe to my newsletter.
But we will put a link to that in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself